Addiction affects families. We see strife, embarrassment, and even death.
Today we're going to focus on how addiction affects our families. I remember growing up with my family, jumping into the car once a month with my mom and dad, and they would take me to a fast food restaurant. I always looked forward to playing on the swing set or sliding down the slide at the different restaurants and having a good hamburger. It was a lot of fun.
Unfortunately, at the fast food restaurant behind us, it's more than families meeting for a good time. There are drug dealers meeting their customers, making deals among families.
Unfortunately, our community and our city is at a crossroads as we continue to grow. So does the addictions within our community. Those addictions cross paths with families on a regular basis.
We're going to talk a little bit more with Megan about how her addiction has impacted her family.
My grandma passed away last year, and we were at her house and stole some of her jewelry. That's probably one of the worst things I've done. I've stolen from stores and stuff, but that's probably the worst thing I've done. So it just take that, the want to get rid of the sickness just takes over any morals you have. I've never stolen before. I don't think that's right, but even though you know it's wrong, it's almost like you're watching yourself do it from the outside, and you feel like you don't have any control. I guess at first you kind of just ignore how bad things are getting. You're always on the go, so we never really just sat down and kind of let shit sink in, like how bad it had really gotten. But I don't know. I think the first night we slept in that abandoned house I think that was kind of where it sank in. Even my boyfriend's mom, we're like, all right, we're leaving. We're gonna go down the road and sleep in that house. She's like, okay, bye. We're like, oh fuck, nobody, it's bad when even your own family is like, all right, whatever. We don't want you in the house. I think that was when I kind of realized, we've hit rock bottom. I guess it gets worse, but not much worse than that. Especially with the two of us trying to support both of our habits, it was, it gets really expensive. We were spending upwards of $300 or $400 a day if we could, just to stay well. So.
There's certain decisions that we make in our life that's going to get us here sooner rather than later.
If I can be an example of getting sober, then I can be an example of starting over. If I can be an example of getting sober, then I can be an example of starting over.
Let's check back in with Megan and hear about some of the decisions that her addiction forced her into.
Right now we're trying to find work. We've been working at a temp agency, which has been really slow, but I don't know, just baby steps. We not try and take on anything too big, and that's when you start, you get overwhelmed and you realize how bad things have gotten. So, but just right now we're just focusing on staying clean, working on our relationship, because using definitely took a huge toll on our relationship. And we've been together in 3 days. We've been together for a year, so we're talking about getting married and stuff like that. And, we actually, in October, we would have had a kid. So it's just different to think what would have happened. But I try and look at it as I wouldn't have wanted to bring a kid up in that environment, and you can't rely on a child to keep you on the straight and narrow, because that's not fair to them. That creates resentment, and I guess I just wouldn't want my kid to grow up like I did, with my family dynamic, having an alcoholic dad. I wouldn't want to put a kid in that situation, so I guess we just look at it that way, that it was, it was the best thing that it was meant to be. So, but that you just look and using drugs can take everything, especially that. So I guess that it's a good reminder to how bad it can get and what it can take from you.
A lot of our youth struggle with addiction, and we don't even know.
Let's meet Josh. He's going to talk about his battle with addiction and the profound impact that it had on his family.
I'm Josh, and I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. Started using drugs, I don't know, probably when I was about 13. I was never the guy that fit in at school. Was the one that got beat up in the hallways a lot, made fun of a lot. And so I was always kind of looking for a way to fit in. And when I discovered drugs and alcohol, at the beginning marijuana and whatever kind of booze I could get somebody else to buy me, I found somebody to fit in with. I used mostly just marijuana through most of high school, but then I got to college and was finally out from my family, who was a great family, but they didn't necessarily like things like drugs and alcohol, and started using cocaine and ecstasy a lot, and eventually made it so I had to leave college even though I had a full ride. And that continued, and so I came back home because I thought that there would be a geographical cure, like that somehow moving locations would help me get clean. And maybe for a little bit it did, but not for any great length of time. Got back to Vancouver and picked up right where I'd left off, as if nothing had changed. The only thing that changed is where I was. Different people, different faces, same thing. Continued to smoke pot a lot then and drink really heavily. And then I found a little thing called crack cocaine. Smoked crack for the next probably 4 or 5 years until I got into treatment the first time. Went to treatment at Sundown M Ranch in Selah, Washington, a little bit south of Yakima. 21 days. I got out, managed to stay clean for almost 2 years. But then when I had a rough patch in my life, things changed. And I went right back out, and this time I found my new love, and it was heroin. Shot heroin for about 5 months straight, probably. And I got to the point where I hit it by shooting in my feet instead of my arms, because if I shot in my arms, number one, I'd run out of veins. Number two, people would know. And even when I was young, I was good at hiding what I was doing. I wasn't necessarily the perfect kid, but nobody thought that I was drinking and using. Would come home late, would stay at friends' houses, would do other things that were considered to be acceptable so that nobody would look at the dark side of what I was really doing.
I've known Josh since he was in junior high. Josh is a great student and comes from an awesome family.
My addiction helped destroy my family relationship for a long time. When I was young, my parents were very trusting and knew that, generally speaking, I would do the right thing. But when I moved back to Vancouver after coming home to get clean and didn't manage to do so, things changed. I would come back in the house just messed up a lot, and they always wanted to give me the benefit of the doubt and stay in denial because they didn't want to really face what was going on, and you can't say that I blame them. Got to the point where my little sister, who's only 18 months younger than I, she and I didn't speak for a couple years. She was always afraid of the fights that would happen, or the name calling, or me throwing things, or losing my temper, because I was always on edge. And after going through treatment the last time and finally getting on the right path in sobriety and cleanliness, she and I have a relationship again. There was still a lot of broken trust to be fixed, and time is one of those things where you can't really discount it. It took me a long time to get to where I was as a drunk and an addict, and it takes a while to get out.
Family isn't just the people we're related to by blood. Sometimes it's the people that support us when we need it most.
I have a new family now in recovery. I live in an Oxford house here in Vancouver. I live with 8 other men who are trying their best to do the same thing I am, stay clean and lead a better life. I attend a fellowship that I cannot name, but the principles and steps within have taught me how to lead a better life and be a better man, and how to stay clean and sober. I also have other friends in recovery, friends who do things like helped provide me with employment when I got out of treatment, gave me a better chance at a better life. And today I have a shot, which is a lot more than I had before.
On behalf of myself, Jim Maines, Gary Bach, and Harrison Lynch, thank you for tuning in to the Vancouver Side, Addiction in Our County, Part 2.
In our final edition, we'll explore how addiction impacts the community at large. And we'll meet a few people who are doing something about it.
God help them. Yeah. One day at a time is what they tell us. Now I gotta find a way to tell them.
But during my addiction, I would always make empty promises and say I would do things and it would never happen. But each day I rebuild trust that I've broken. Each day I now can make promises that I will keep. And now when I give my word, I'm usually good for it.
We fall so